Today we're taking a deeper dive into cabinet doors. When you come home to your van, when you show off your van to the company, the first thing everybody sees is how you finish the inside. Welcome to vanofaction.com. We're taking our 2018 Dodge Promaster van and turning it into a family camper. And along the way, we're sharing the good, the bad, the ugly, trying to save you some time, give you some food for thought, and save you a whole lot of money. If you find this useful, give us a like, a share, and a subscribe, because we can use the lovin'. And today, we're taking a deeper dive into our cabinet doors. The cabinet covers, whatever you're going to use, is the first thing that you see when you come home to your van, is the first thing that company sees when they come into your van. It's going to set the tone for what it's like to be inside. And so we really need to give it a lot of consideration. It doesn't matter what you're going to use. You could be finishing it with marine plywood. You could be finishing it with live edge lumber. You could want something more rustic. You could want something more elegant. It really doesn't make any difference, but it needs to be thought through, because this is a part of the van that's visual, obviously, but it also can be really, really expensive. Doesn't have to be. Cabinet doors are really one of the most abused parts of your van build. They're always being used. Inside, things are falling against them. Outside, you're opening and closing all the time. When you're driving down the highway, there's a lot of vibration. They're only attached by a couple of points where the hinges are. There can be a lot of things that can go wrong with the door. So it's really important that they be built strong, really strong. At the end of this video, I'll link to the way I built mine. But essentially, what you've got to do is you've got to really be careful that you build a strong core into the middle of your door. It's not hard to do, but it's important you think about that. Once you've decided on the design you want, you have to ask yourself about the hardware. And then the question becomes, how are you going to use your door? Is it going to open up? Is it going to open out? Is it going to drop down? I don't have any of those to show you, but once you figure that out, you can start thinking about the kind of hardware you want. First, on the outside. On the outside, I've got pulls for the doors that open sideways. For the doors that open up, though, I didn't want to have a pull here, because if I had a pull on the outside of my door, when I pulled it up, I was afraid it was going to mark the ceiling, because cedar, as beautiful as it is soft. So I didn't want to be opening the door and have the handle start banging on the ceiling and making a mark. So instead, what I did was I machined a thumb pull on the underside of the frame. Now that makes it what I feel is a really clean, elegant line, but it also saves it's a practical solution to not having the ceiling marked, and it saved the cost of the pulls on these doors. I'm happy with both of them. On the inside of your door, your cabinet door, you're going to build some kind of a lip. You're going to have some kind of a lip inside, so things that are on the shelves aren't going to fall out just by going around a corner. But these hinges are one of the major considerations, and let's take a little bit closer look at the hinges that I used for my build. These are the hinges that I got. I got them at Home Depot. They're in with the regular cabinet hinge section. I don't know what they're called, but up close, this is what they look like. I really like them because they're spring-loaded, and they have a cylinder in here that holds them. They're stiff. It's almost impossible to make them work unless they're attached to something. They're really stiff. Now, these hinges I used as opposed to this style hinge. And this is what would be called a concealed European style hinge. And they're functional. They're nice. There's no question they work well. The challenge with these, though, from a van build perspective, in my opinion, is to install these hinges, you have to drill a hole in the door. And once that hole's drilled, that's where the hinge has to go. There's very little adjustment in either up and down or sideways once these hinges are installed. This goes on the door, this piece goes on the cabinet, and once they've locked together, they're a good, reliable hinge, and a lot of builders use them, but I find them to be very restrictive and limited in how you can use them depending on where your build is. This hinge is surface mounted. And because it's surface mounted, you can move it along the door if you need to. And in a couple of cases I had to with my control panel for the electricals. I had to move the hinge to the left a little bit in order to miss the wiring that was behind. I couldn't have done that had I machined this to accommodate this hinge beforehand. I like those because I like these because they're flexible, because they're all in one. And when I say flexible, you can install these a number of different ways. And this is what the hinge looks like installed. And you can install this anywhere on the door you want to. It's total flexibility. This is called a flush mount installation because the cabinet or the case and the face of the door are flush with each other. Now watch what happens when I open that. See how the hinge throws the door away from the case. There's no friction. Now you might say, well, if this is my top cubby and the ceiling's right here, that's going to be awfully close to the ceiling. That's not a problem. All you have to do is build your case with an extra piece of wood to lower it down a little bit and then put a facing on it, and the door would go in exactly the same way. And then when you throw it open, it would have a little more space. Easily done. And that would work fine. I don't have another hinge to show that. But rather than do the flush mount, because with a flush mount, your door fits in between the case and the side rails and the bottom of your cabinet. Something like this. And that looks really beautiful, but that takes a lot of fine machining to make sure all those doors are the same size. Rather than do that, go with a surface mount, which is what I used because it's easier. With a surface mount, the door overhangs the outside of the cabinet a little bit. And again, when you open it up, see how the hinge throws it away. Now I've got this one built down, so I have room at the ceiling to grab it and pull it down. That's not a problem. But doing it this way with the flush mount or with the overhang, I've got room at the top to go up and down a little bit, but I also have room at the sides. I can move my door this way and it'll be fine. No one would ever know. So if my openings aren't all exactly the same size, I can make my doors the same size and just mount them with a little more overlap on one side or the other. No one would ever know. It looks very professional and very clean. The other beautiful part about these hinges is they hold themselves open. So you don't need to buy a hydraulic arm or a spring-loaded arm. There's all kinds of different pieces of hardware you can buy that are all expensive, and they all get in the way. You won't need these with this. With these hinges, you only need 2 hinges per door, and that's all the hardware. And these hinges were less than $6 at Home Depot. You can spend $15, $20, $25, $30 a hinge for the concealed type. You can spend a lot more than that. This was a very economical solution and a very practical solution, and it does exactly what I wanted to do. There's no compromises with this at all. I use these hinges on the top cubbies, on the doors that open sideways. I use them everywhere in the build. The construction and hardware for your doors is really important to your build. It can be very expensive, or it can be done very economically. So I would suggest to you, take the time to do it as economically as you can, because this is a place where as a DIY builder, you can save some money. There's some places where we can't. There's some places where if we don't spend a lot of money, we just get junk. But in this case, you can do a really good job for a really little bit of money, and then when the time comes that you have to spend it, you're more comfortable. Hope you found this useful. Take a look at these other videos. Give us a like, a share, a subscribe, and be sure to stop back. Cheers.